Cops and other law enforcement people of Reddit, what were some cases you worked on that made you think, even if for a moment, that something supernatural or paranormal was going on? This is unexplained and probably just a coincidence, but I still never mention it to my coworkers. I spent some time as a homicide investigator. We would respond to all apparent suicides and investigate them, just to make sure it wasn't a homicide. Usually, we determined a motive for suicide and found a note or other indicator that the person killed themselves. One guy just taped a note to his chest that said, "Happy now? Beach?" and made sure his wife found him after he hanged himself. But occasionally, you get a case where all forensic evidence indicates that the person killed themselves. Still, there's no note and no discernible reason why this person would be suicidal. These are people in good health with decent careers and a seemingly happy family life. But who knows what's really going on with someone? Here's the part that freaks me out. I've worked maybe 10 suicides like this. The last 3 before I left homicide, all had the same thing at the scene. There was a little decorative wicker lighthouse at each location. It was the same lighthouse, same design, and painted white and blue. It stuck out to me the first time because it was by the bed where the body was. Still, 2 weeks later, I saw the same damn lighthouse on another suicide, and it even pointed out the coincidence to a patrol officer. A few months later, I go on another suicide, and I see that same wicker lighthouse. That's when it clicks that it's always been unexplained suicides. I go back and look at crime scene photos from every suicide I've worked. In 2 of them, I see what could be the wicker lighthouse, but the angle is off, and there's too much junk around to say for sure. I thought it was creepy as hell, but I transferred a couple of months later, and I let it go. I am a paramedic, fire. Late summer night responding to a call in a rural area. My partner and I were driving down a winding 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere. No light of any kind other than the headlights and moon. We're coming up on a sharp right turn when I see a man traveling across the grass from an area of brush. He's moving very quickly and smoothly, as if hauling ass on a bicycle. No up and down motion like running. Obviously, I'm pretty confused about a hillbilly on a bike in the middle of the night, but not surprised. He comes to a tree and stops. It's about this time we're driving by him. Looked out the window and saw a man standing next to this tree with no bike or anything in sight. Just standing there staring at the truck passing by. My hair is standing up. We continue towards the call, and I ask my partner if he has seen that guy. His response is, "Man, I thought I was crazy." My dad used to work as a correctional officer at Goulburn Jail in Australia, which is probably one of the oldest and hardest prisons there. A story he tells of his time there is one I always remember. He said that the whole place was creepy anyway, not helped by some of the inmates at the time, including the notorious Ivan Milat, on which Wolf Creek is based. Anyway, the first thing he noticed was that dogs would outright refuse to enter the prison. He said they couldn't get them past the gate no matter how hard they tried. But the creepiest occurrence was one night when they heard the sound of running booted footsteps. Everyone was in their cell. So, they couldn't figure out what was causing it. Next thing, all the doors of the open and unoccupied cells on the top floor were banged shut, one after the other with loud clangs. Then they see the source of the running noise. Now, Dad swears this is what he and his colleague, so he has another witness, saw. Apparently, they looked up and saw what looked like disembodied hobnail boots run down the aisle right over their heads, banging as they went. Dad decided to stop working in prison not long after this. Super creepy. Cop here. Partner and I were dispatched to a welfare check. Elderly guy, nobody had seen it in a few days, mail overflowing in the mailbox, missed a doctor's appointment, the car hasn't moved, etc. We both know we are about to find a body. We arrive on the scene and can't get anyone to the door, look through the window, and sure enough, we can see his foot on the floor in the living room. My partner is a corporal and pulls rank and makes me go first. The door is unlocked, and as soon as we open it, we smell a mostly fresh dead body. Almost relieved, we both enter, and he tells me to check vitals on the dead dude. He is obviously dead, with lividity, dried feces on him, and dried saliva around his mouth. So, I go to stand over him and see if I can get a pulse, at which point he takes a deep breath, rolls over, and asks why we are in his house. At this point, we both start screaming as we both run out of the house. We called EMS, and they transported him. Said they couldn't get a blood pressure or pulse on him. I think he died a week later in the hospital. I still get jokes about raising the dead. I am a CNA in a local hospital. One of my patients just had a quad bypass, open heart surgery, and I went in toto check her vitals. The room was dim, and the hall was quiet. I'm looking at her, and in the corner of my eye, I see something drop from the ceiling out of nowhere. It makes a big clunk sound, and I turn to see what it could be. There's nothing there. At that moment, my patient looks up at me and says, "My dad's here." Passes back out. I finish my job and leave. When I would go to that floor again as a floater, I would hate to go into that room. I'm a CMA, was working the night shift in an Alzheimer's unit. All of the residents were in and out with their clarity. One lady seemed to be hallucinating, which were pretty common for those residents. She insisted her husband was there, and she talked to him, scooted over so he could sit next to her, etc., etc. Just generally acted like there was another person was there when there wasn't. Her husband, Jim, had been dead for a couple of years. She seemed happy, and there's no point arguing with someone with dementia anyway, so we left them to visit. After a while, she quiets down and says Jim left. Across the hall, the lady in that room turns on her call light. Her complaint? "This man won't get out of my room. We don't see anything," and ask, "What, man? Who is it?" She turns to the nothingness beside her bed and says, "Who are you?" Then turns back to us and says, "His name is Jim." This is an excellent supernatural/paranormal story rather than a creepy one. I'm a detective and spent some time as an expert on sex crimes and crimes against children. It was the best/worst assignment I've had. In one case, I had come in at midnight. A young woman with a toddler comes into one of the precincts to report her ex-boyfriend raped her during a custody argument. Long story short, it was legit and one of the most violent and sadistic cases I've ever had, so I'll spare the gruesome details. I still have no idea how this woman made her own way to a precinct with a toddler. Part of the investigation requires me to talk to the toddler. The victim said the toddler was present for everything. I'm a child forensic interviewer as well. During the interview, the toddler recalls their father becoming angry and hitting the mom. Then, the toddler said that the nice woman showed up and couldn't see past the nice woman. The nice woman held her and told her that they were both going to be safe and sang her a song in a different language. The toddler said the nice woman went over to the front door and knocked on the door. Then, the nice woman helps them and their mom to the car before flying away. In the victim's interview, she said that her ex-boyfriend had a knife to her throat and put it to the skin to cut her throat open, but he got distracted for some reason then ran out of the apartment. She had no explanation why. The suspect was caught about 8 hours later. He confessed to absolutely everything. When I asked him about the knife to the throat, he said this: "I swear to God I was going to cut the bitch's throat open. But I thought I heard a knock at the door and thought it was the police. Once I saw it was clear, I ran outside." He is now serving life in prison, and the mom and toddler are safe and doing well. I'd love to know more about the nice woman. Fellow EMT told me this story 2 years ago, so I might butcher it a bit, but I got chills hearing it at the time. He was working the overnight shift in Quincy when dispatch gave him a call to do a well-being check on an address that called through a landline, but no one was talking. Naturally, they go to the house with police and fire to check on the possible patient. House is completely dark with no electricity even running through it, and it's abandoned. They check the surrounding houses making sure people are okay, and then leave after figuring that nothing was wrong. A couple hours later, same call, same situation. So, this time, they go to explore the inside of the house more. Fire and police are on the first and second floor while my friend and his partner go to the basement. When they get down there and are searching around with flashlights, they get a chill, and then my friend's partner screams and says something grabbed him. Nothing's there. They were fucking dip upstairs and into the front yard. Everyone is out there in a few, and it's silent. The fire chief then asks if anyone else got a weird chill in there, to which they all agreed. The call was over. Few more hours, they get another call to the same house, but no one goes in this time. An elderly lady phoned 911 and requested that they send some policemen down to her house because she saw a shadowy figure lurking in her backyard. She was living by herself at night and didn't feel safe watching someone through her window. When the policemen arrived, the door was unlocked. They walked in and found the lady seated facing the window, and they went to go check the backyard. There were no signs of anyone attempting to break and enter, and nothing was missing. She had very tall fences surrounding her property, making it nearly impossible for anyone to get into it. They did, however, find footprints on the inside of her home. It was quite possible that she had left the door unlocked and wasn't looking outside, but rather at a reflection of someone inside of her home, behind her. EMT here. Once, I had a call at our local mall. Show up, and an 8-year-old was having breathing problems. Her mother, aunt, and cousin had just been caught stealing, and it was late at night. We assumed the breathing problem was stress-induced. Once we got into the back of our unit, she looked my partner and me in the eyes and said that she lived in a bad place. She said she lived with demons, and I shit you not, as she described the demons, her heart rate plummeted to 90 BPM to 45 BPM in a matter of seconds. My partner and I looked at each other. We immediately started trying to lighten the mood and preparing for a code. She ended up being okay. I will never forget that experience. My grandpa was in Rio in Vietnam, basically the guy who told the pilot where to go and what was ahead. One day, he and his team are finishing up a mission, and one of his buddies in another jet barrel rolls over them. He then descends into the clouds. They never saw them again. He just vanished. They searched for weeks but no crash site, no communications, nothing. Just poof, gone. They were over the cloud line, so my grandpa was unsure of where exactly they were when he vanished.